Blog Talk Radio.
All right, race fans, welcome to the show. It's Race Chat Live. I hope that you're having a great night here. Glad you decided to join our podcast tonight. Of course, you can find us on all the important Blog Talk, all the important podcast networks if you don't listen to the show live. Give us just a second. We're trying to get everything logged in and put in place. Run a couple of minutes behind here tonight, but that's okay, too. We'll try to get Taz Taylor in the studio. Hopefully he's ready. He's there. I see him there, so we're going to plug him in. Of course, you guys, we know, coming off the All-Star event, I would give the event basically a B+, off of what I watched for the weekend. That's really hard to give, but there was a lot of questions we had coming into the race, and I think all in all, what we had a decent race. We had one person lead all the laps, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to say, wait a minute, Chris, that is way off the wall. Like you wouldn't normally think that that's a good race. You would definitely have your guns out ready to shoot. Well, I'm not going to do that here tonight. I think that there's a lot of positives that we can take away from North Wilkesboro. I think the one thing that we can take away from North Wilkesboro is now I believe that it deserves a cup date. It deserves to be put back on the schedule. The lighting is beautiful. The track has been paved, and it still has a lot of character in it. We are just we're victim of circumstance at this point in time. We are left with what we have here with this tire and Goodyear and the car that just is hard to pass. And I think that we're making ground and we're making headway. We've seen some pushing and shoving. Of course, there's some irritated drivers over this, and there's a particular driver that's basically just had a really crappy freaking season. And this is kind of where we had discussed last year of Kyle Busch on at what point in time does the panic button get hit? Well, if you look over and listen to the radio the past few weeks, you can tell that Kyle Busch has finally had a freaking enough, and he's tired of a car that he only thought the car wouldn't drive, I guess, over at Joe Gibbs Racing. But the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Of course, Joey Logano led every lap, did not make it that appealing. But I think with the other factors, with the tires and the strategies, I think that kind of opened the door to say, okay, this racetrack is definitely ready to host a cup event. Now, if most of you guys followed the weekend, all of the late model stuff got rained out. The truck race got rained out. A monsoon showed up at the racetrack at the tale of Kyle Petty about Darlington to fill it full of bass, and the place still wouldn't be worth a I love Kyle Petty for saying that. But that's basically the scene that was there at North Wilkesboro on Saturday evening as drain pipes had gotten plugged up and water had nowhere to go. Taz Taylor, how about joining me, man? No big rant today. We want to keep things on a roll here, try to get out of here pretty early tonight. We don't have very much to talk about. We do have the element in the room, so to speak, with the confrontation between Kyle Busch and competitor, local Mississippian, Ricky Roy Jones Jr. Stenhouse III. Are you ready to rumble? I mean, so I may be just judging this race off of the fight that I've seen at the end of it. I'm a rowdy boy from Mississippi, and I tend to like that kind of stuff. And when somebody says, well, Ricky's just the type of fella that does what he says he's going to do, well, let me tell you something. If that ain't explaining a boy from Mississippi, there's probably not a better explanation. So I'll let the man from New York tell me whether or not I'm just sitting here daydreaming about, old Stenhouse giving the old, now it's Ricky Knockout Stenhouse. Tyson the third junior. Holy crap! Save me here, Taz Taylor.
Ding ding, who wants fight night?
I swear,
Did somebody
man.
sign up
Did
for
you see
fight
the
night?
guns on that guy? Holy hell! I think he works out. How about the guy? How about the pit crew guy? He's the real hero of the night because we got to see him in full athletic form. That was a manly beast.
Oh my God. This thing erupted so bad that if you watch the Pat McAfee show, and Pat McAfee had Kyle Busch on his show a few weeks ago just to talk to Kyle Busch and whatnot, and Pat literally asked Kyle, like, are you still the same Kyle, or have you kind of, gotten to be a little bit more humble, like settled down, you're one of the veterans? And Kyle's like, no, I'm still the same Kyle. He goes, I may have gotten older, but I'm still the same Kyle. If you want to ruffle feathers with me, I'll ruffle feathers back. I don't care who you are. And this past weekend showed it, and definitely for sure. And boy, did you have Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ricky Stenhouse Sr. freaking go at him. You had Stenhouse give him a right hook punch, and Stenhouse Sr. try to get at it with Kyle Busch and throw some hands, and then Stenhouse's crew starts choking out Kyle Busch, and then here's Kyle Busch's pit crew guy throwing everybody around saying, get the hell off this freaking trailer.
Oh. Hey, he's going to play for the UFL or the NFL, guaranteed, with those kind of moves.
Well, Pat McAfee, when I saw the Pat McAfee version of this, he goes, that guy must have been a linebacker. He goes, at least 90% of these guys that you see used to be college football athletes, or they were linebackers or offensive tackles, or
correct.
He goes, a lot of these picker guys are big boys, and he goes, that guy must have been a linebacker because when he came in, he cleared house.
Oh, for sure. And the way that he tied around his arms, you know that he had an extensive amount of training into blocking. So obviously he was a defensive end, possibly a linebacker, but the arm movement is what gives me the belief that maybe he was a tight end or a defensive end somewhere in college. I wish we had. Why do we not know this guy's name yet? I mean, we know the name of the Cucumber Man, but we don't know the name of this guy who's, Johnny Appleseed. I don't know. He's Hulk Hogan. He's what was the Green Man called? The Incredible Hulk. He had on a green uniform. He could pass for the Incredible Hulk.
Oh man, he's he could have been Bruce Banner for all I knew.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I'm going to start calling him Bruce.
Since we're talking about wrestlers, I'll go ahead and say I'm not much of a movie review guy, but I literally watched probably the dumbest movie I've seen since Van Wilder last night, and it had John Cena in it, and the movie's called Ricky Stenicki. And I wouldn't advise children to be around watching, especially smaller children, because they refer to certain things that probably are not decent for small children. But let's just say I had a couple of good laughs, but all in all, it was a really dumb movie. But I'd probably sit down and watch it again if I had never seen it. So that kind of tells the tale of what kind of movie it was. But, yeah, I'm not a movie critic, so go out and watch it if you fucking want to. If you don't, and just scratch whatever I just said. But anyway, there's not much to talk about on the racing side, Taylor. Let's get back to what happened this week. First of all,
I got one more thing here.
Forward to okay, go ahead.
I got one more thing here. The best line of all of that confrontation was, "I don't give a fuck. I suck just as bad as you."
I suck just as bad as you. And in that moment in time, I have yet to not feel bad for Kyle Busch. Maybe that's why I love it so much, because my guy, my hero, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., knocks out Kyle Busch. And then Kyle's like, I'd hit myself too because I suck that bad. Oh, my God, dude. Seriously, we've got to get Kyle Busch out of RCR. Imagine how that pit crew feels today, knowing that those words were said after they stood up for it. Look, he does. He sucks right now. Kyle Busch legitimately sucks right now. And I think that this is, we'll reverse it back to what we talked about last year. If he don't get him a couple wins soon, there's going to be a breakdown, man, because he feels like it's the quality of equipment. So he's been in better equipment before, and I think that that's just going to rot at his brain until he leaves the company and finds somebody else to drive for.
I don't want to say he's on a major downfall, but obviously the guy can still drive. I mean, if you compare 4 weeks to how he started the season, it's almost a night and day difference because he has been competing for top 10s in the last few weeks before North Wilkesboro. But if you go before that, minus, I would say, Daytona and Atlanta, which is where he's a super speedway racer, he's not been one you would think of talking about. Like he had bad luck left and right, whether if it's something happening on the track, whether if it's his fault or not, or he has pit crew issues, which, by the way, he did have a ton of those for quite a while that costed him some of the results he should have gotten. I mean, I'm trying to remember which race it was, but shoot, he had like 3 pit road issues in one race. Whether if it was his pit crew or his pit crew didn't help him out and get him in his box.
Be honest with each other. And remember, we got to go back and talk about Logano and the whole leading every lap or whatever. But tell me what well, darn. I just forgot what I was going to say. Go ahead, Taz. Bring it back one time. What did you just say?
Kyle Busch has just got to figure out what is going on with the team, because it's
not just, and you said team too, so this really connects it back to what my thought was. It's not just a Kyle Busch problem. It seems to be every Chevrolet except for Hendrick Motorsports problem. And this doesn't seem to be just every Chevrolet team outside of Hendrick Motorsports. It really seems to be every big team outside of the big 2 teams of Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports. But there's definitely something off this year with these Chevys that are not coming out of the Hendrick camp. And you can focus, all you have to look is at Spire Motorsports and see that, technically the 7 car hasn't made any ground. Now, Carson Hocevar, I think, has done more in this car than what we expected, possibly matching what a Corey LaJoie would have done last year. But Zane Smith's been completely off speed, and it just seems that outside of the Hendrick camp, Taz Taylor, there's obviously some issues going on, because look at Trackhouse. We have not really talked much about Trackhouse this year. Ross Chastain has gotten a lot of publicity, but it ain't because of what's going on the track. It's the momentum that we're talking about him because of the success that he's had the previous couple of years. If you'll pull the stats up right now, and I'm sure that you already have based off of what we're going to pull out tonight for the Coca-Cola 600, his stats are down right now. And that just shows. We know Ross Chastain is the real deal, bro. We know he's the real deal. And we know, similar to Kyle Larson, you put him in another organization such as Joe Gibbs or possibly Hendrick, man, that guy's probably winning 5 to 6 races a year, right? He is with a secondary team, and Trackhouse is good, but they're not Hendrick Motorsports, right? Obviously, I feel, Taz, that this is not just a Kyle Busch problem. This is a Chevy problem in whole. And look, that's what he said. I sucked too. Ricky Stenhouse drives a Chevrolet.
I think Trackhouse, I remember mentioning this a couple weeks ago. I think Trackhouse is kind of pulling what Rick Ware used to do for the longest time, and that's biting off more than you can chew. If you look back to how Trackhouse started, which was just the NASCAR Cup Series, they had Daniel Suarez, who I think they managed that for a year. Then they got the hold of the Ganassi deal and expanded to 2 cars and got Ross Chastain. And Ross Chastain pulled off, 2 or 3 wins that year. And then the following year, both Suarez and Chastain won. This year, it's only been Suarez who won on a photo finish, literally.
At a kind of a throwaway track, at a Russian roulette track, at a blackjack track. It definitely was other factors that kind of helped him in that situation. Obviously, anytime that they're using the draft, it does kind of equalize the field. Yeah,
so it's kind of been an off year, and if you look at Trackhouse outside of the Cup Series, you got Shane Gibbs. You also have the signing of Zane Smith, who's under contract with Trackhouse, but not even racing for Trackhouse, who I believe got rushed up terribly. Then you got crap, I forgot. Oh, SVG. You have SVG in the Xfinity Series, which, he's running for Trackhouse, but he's under Colleague, so that's, I feel like now they have 2 drivers that they have signed, but they haven't, it seems like they're putting money into the drivers, which is fine, but now you're cutting money out of your Cup teams who were performing of some extent. Then you have them trying to reach out into, with Justin Marks doing, sports car racing and then motorcycle racing that Trackhouse is, trying to be a part of. And I just feel like Trackhouse is trying to bite off more than they can chew. And you could see it affect the Cup team, in all honesty. Because look at Ross Chastain.
Things have run thin there. Adding 2 drivers to their lineup, obviously paying those 2 drivers contracts, trying to make sure that they're in more decent rides than what the other companies would be paying for, because they're footing the bill on Van Gisbergen's Xfinity ride. They're picking up part of the tab for sure. They're picking up part of the tab for Zane Smith to be over at the 71 machine at Spire Motorsports. That they are. So that's a whole lot of extra going out the door that they didn't have to worry about beforehand. But the money that's been brought to the table and the sponsorships that are available, that Budweiser sponsorship, Busch sponsorship, whatever you want to call it, Anheuser-Busch sponsorship, it's a wealthy penny. And I'm not sure how much Daniel Suarez is still bringing in, but I'm sure Carlos Slim still throwing him a little bit of cheddar for his Beretta. So, there's a good bit of money coming into the Trackhouse organization through sponsorships and whatnot. I feel like Hendrick developed an advantage when they come out with the Garage 56 car, and they are using the technology that they were, gifted to basically do things to the car that nobody else even understands yet, because we haven't had to build a car production style car to that factory. So they were able to do things in that Garage 56 car that they could have only dreamed of doing with the Cup Series car. And what that does is, you're definitely right. They can't go and mimic that idea, but remember, they have information to where they can recreate it in a different kind. There's a reason, Tasso, and you've been around dirt tracks long enough, that you run bump stops or you run springs and tie downs and all this other stuff. There's a reason for all that lingo, and each of those can really change the performance of how the car sits on the ground or how the car reacts going through a dry slick racetrack. So it's all technical, Taz Taylor, and when engineers can get a hold of something like that car and turn it into what they did with the Garage 56. Those engineers say, well, if I can do it like this, I'm smart enough to do it like this, and nobody will even know that I'm doing it, because that's the information, the feedback, the data that they've received off of that car. Look, they claim racing's for a bunch of dumbass rednecks, but in reality, those guys help people get to, well, I say get to the moon, but I don't believe we ever been to the moon. So astronauts, I guess, is what I'll call them.
The one thing, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that, because look at this past weekend with the All-Star race. You had Hendrick with Larson's car, the substitute driver for qualifying, practice, and even for the heat races that ended up being rained out. Kevin Harvick was driving the car, and I honestly, and I knew for a fact Kyle Larson would not be the big favorite, because of the fact he was going to be in Indy. His first laps of running the repaved North Wilkesboro was going to be Sunday night in the main event, and I literally thought Kyle Larson would not perform as well as he did because of that, because I mentioned this in the group chat. You have Kevin Harvick driving the car, and I know that Cliff Daniels is going to set up the 5 car to the best that he can to suit Kyle Larson, but I thought that Kevin Harvick would set the car up to what he thinks the car should be doing or whatnot, and work with Cliff Daniels on it. And sometimes drivers are different when it comes to that. Like I'm sure Kevin Harvick would prefer his car to be set up a certain way versus Kyle Larson would have set up a certain way. So I literally thought Kyle Larson would be struggling Sunday night all night long. And no, it was not like that. So it could come down to what you said, the whole engineer aspect. And I'm pretty sure Cliff Daniels, even though he's a crew chief, served pretty well as an engineer. Like, we set up the car for Kyle Larson. This is what the car is doing here. This is what the car is doing here at this time with this tire. Cliff Daniels is a smart freaking dude. And that's why I keep saying Kyle Larson and Cliff Daniels are a dangerous pair, because you have a driver who can wheel anything with 4 wheels and a motor, and you have Cliff Daniels, who's a smart freaking guy on top of that box. And you can't say he's not, because, I mean, look at what Cliff Daniels has done. He turned Kyle Larson's championship at Phoenix, what was it, 2021. Kyle Larson was not the dominant driver of Phoenix when he won the championship. And then when it came to the last 10 laps, it came down to 1 pit stop. Cliff Daniels said, all right, we're doing this, and we're going to pull it off. And holy crap, they did. And Kyle Larson won a championship.
Yeah, I mean, the writing was on the wall for that one for sure. I'd like to see him pull out another championship, of course, just to solidify his excellence in NASCAR racing. And, I say that gritting my teeth because I'm not really that much of a Kyle Larson fan. And as a matter of fact, tonight it could be the Kyle Larson show, because we could really literally talk more about him than what we could with Joey Logano leading every lap of the Atlanta race. But we'll get back to that later on. If you don't see the trend of what we got going on here, we'll be back to that later on. There was literally nothing much else to talk about. Now, what we do have to talk about that could be related to the Kyle Larson factor is the fact that Kevin Harvick got to fill in this week for none other than Kyle Larson. And Kevin Harvick took a jab maybe at Stewart-Haas Racing by saying that he come in contact with basically his boss at Hendrick more than what he come in contact with at his tenure at SHR. So basically what he was saying is, I went to the shop twice and I seen my boss twice. That's not something that he's typically used to being at Stewart-Haas Racing, I guess, kind of hinting that Gene Haas nor Tony Stewart ever seems to be around the building. We kind of guessed this, and we talked about that a lot before this demise of Stewart-Haas Racing happened, and we shouldn't be surprised, and I don't think that we are, that they're in the situation that they're in. But what is surprising is the fact of Mr. Hendrick calling Kevin Harvick. See, he could have used a lot of different drivers at the time, Taz Taylor. He could have used Justin Allgaier. He had drivers that he could have just sat in the car and done whatever, to make sure that the car went through inspections and whatnot, right? But he called Kevin Harvick. Now, Taz Taylor, am I the only one that hasn't seen this before, where Hendrick says, oh, yeah, just jump in the 5 car there, take her for a spin. And the next thing you know, one driver's headed one way and a new driver, like Dale Jr., is racing with the organization the next year? Or how about the old, I'm retiring, I'm really retiring this time. Mark, the 5 car's coming up, and would you race for a couple of years? Well, I guess since you asked, Mr. Hendrick, I guess I will. Taz Taylor, please convince me here tonight that old Mr. Rick Hendrick didn't call up Kevin Harvick, and maybe there's a little bit more to the offer than just some seat time on a Saturday night in North Wilkesboro.
I feel like Kevin Harvick could probably be the Hendrick test driver, or maybe a Hendrick backup driver type of deal. I don't think...
Taylor, I'm asking, do you think he's going to come out of retirement? Is that what you're getting to?
No.
Because I'm getting kind of antsy here.
No.
Huh?
No.
He's not?
No.
So
and the reason why I say
that
is because he's got KHI to focus on, the Cars Tour to focus on, and he's made it quite clear in his interview this past weekend that he not only had to talk to the bosses over at Fox to make sure this was okay, but he also had to clear it up with his main boss, Mrs. Harvick, and
the woman who wears the fire suit in the family.
And make sure that everything was all good to go before he told Hendrick, I'm definitely doing it. Because by the sound of it, he really is retired and pretty much wants to stay there. And it seems like he's happy where he's at right now.
Taz Taylor, he entertained the idea. That's how close to unretirement Kevin Harvick is. Kevin Harvick could have said, Mr. H, I'd love to, but I've retired and I don't want to start that itch. No, sir. They say that he to the deal before it was even offered, because he would do anything for Mr. Hendrick. But why would he be doing anything for Mr. Hendrick? Did Mr. Hendrick help Kevin Harvick in any way and form in his career other than supply him motors and cars in the beginning of Stewart-Haas Racing when he went there? I mean, outside of that, I just don't know how Mr. Hendrick had so much of a help for Kevin Harvick. So there's obviously some true love there. Maybe Harvick tried to offer his services there before, and Mr. Hendrick didn't have a spot for him or something. There's more to the story. Taz Taylor. And next year, when I'm sitting on my high perch on a Tuesday evening, I'm going to remind you that there's a reason why we look down at the 48 car and it's Sir Kevin Harvick behind the wheel. But, I'm probably wrong. Very good.
Nah, we're not going to see Kevin Harvick in there. But in terms of what you're kind of going at, in the racing business, whether you race for somebody or not, or have an alliance with somebody or not, that doesn't mean, let's put it this way, Harvick had no ties with Joe Gibbs, but does that mean Harvick, does that mean Harvick had any sort of conversations or pointers or anything like that with Joe Gibbs? He probably had plenty of conversations, and I feel like that with Hendrick, even though Harvick never really drove for Hendrick, and I'm not going to go against the fact that he probably exercised his options with Hendrick when it came to probably contractual agreements and stuff like that. But I do think Harvick probably behind the scenes that we don't even know or reports have not even said, I'm sure Harvick, low-key behind the scenes has had talks with Hendrick in terms of, different race stories or different pointers that maybe Harvick has gotten from Hendrick and stuff like that. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Kevin Harvick is going to come out of retirement and we'll see him in the 48 in the next year or two to replace Alex Bowman. I think he, as you said, entertained the idea, but I do believe he's going to stay where he is currently at. And it seems like he's happy and settled in, and he's pretty subtle with it.
At least you entertained the idea that he may have entertained an offer. But I've done a little bit of research, Taz Taylor, and he would have to fire a driver to get it done. And the only driver that I have found that may not be under contract for next season is actually Kyle Larson. His deal is set to expire at the end of the year. Alex Bowman signed an extension last year along with Ally that goes through the 2025 race season.
Oh, I'm sure Larson will. I'm sure if Hendrick was smart, he's going to do anything he can to keep Larson for as long as he can.
I really want to talk about Joey Logano leading every lap of the All-Star event. But nothing sickens me more than to hear Jeff Gordon blabber in his mouth in Indy about how much he loves the place and how he wishes he could have raced Indy cars. And basically, in my point of view, stealing the spotlight from Kyle Larson. Taz Taylor, do you have any specific comments or opinions toward Jeff Gordon soaking up the spotlight over there in Indianapolis?
Because he either was not presented the opportunity to drive for anybody to do the Indy 500, or he was not smart enough to put his name out there to try to find a ride so he can run the Indy 500. I feel like he kind of used the Kyle Larson deal just to get him over there and put his name out there.
Yeah, it's just sad.
I feel like he's riding Kyle Larson's coattails for it.
I remember just a couple of weeks before basically the deal come out with Kyle Larson saying the Wheel of Fortune word for the South Park version, but they actually said the dumbass actually said the word and got caught on live stream saying it. Just a few weeks before COVID happened, I believe they were racing at California Speedway, and Jeff Gordon went out, and I said on the show that I believe that basically Jeff Gordon went out and went to Kyle Larson and was courting him to come to Hendrick Motorsports. Of course, I was called a conspiracy theorist then, and he'll never leave Chip Ganassi, and he's loyal, and Chip's loyal, and I heard it all. And then all of a sudden it happened. And, whether or not Kyle Larson had a handshake deal already for Hendrick Motorsports or there was already a contract signed, I doubt there was a contract signed. Basically, him getting fired from Chip Ganassi was inevitable any damn way because he was going to be leaving the next year headed toward Hendrick Motorsports. There was without a doubt that Jeff Gordon, when he took the realm of Hendrick Motorsports, knew that he needed to go out and find the best driver that suited the type of driver that Jeff Gordon was. Now, we've never given Jeff Gordon props or said that he was super intelligent on how to master a race car to make it go fast. As a matter of fact, all we ever really talked about was Gordon on how he could drive a race car. we never said that he was good at setting up a race car. He had some of the best crew chiefs Hendrick could offer, including his, beginning his career with Ray Evernham, who was one hell of a masterful race engineer before being given basically the cheerleader role of crew chief. He was still the car engineer behind the curtain, and I think that we found that out later on between Andy Petrie and Ray Evernham in the sharing of notes, that these two basically teams were teammates and nobody even knew it, right? I mean, that's crazy to find out that later on. Hendrick gets what he wants, and I think that, Jeff Gordon courted Kyle Larson several years ago, and that was a done deal set up to carry the 5-car back to where it is today. And look, it was a good move by Mr. Hendrick, and of course Jeff Gordon, if he did, was the one that went out and courted Kyle Larson. But at the same time, let the guy be his own glory, right? Let him. He's the one that did it. You might have wished you could have done it, but he's the one that's actually doing it. And I want to tell you one thing, since we're not really talking much about, Joey Logano leading every lap of the All-Star race. What we are going to talk about is the fact that there wasn't much hype on the IndyCar side about a NASCAR driver coming over there. And as a matter of fact, if you were watching qualifying like I was, when, was it Rossi come out or somebody come out and did a better time than Kyle Larson, and everybody that was at qualifying erupted into cheers. Now, I don't know if they were cheering because they liked the driver or if they were cheering because Kyle Larson was not going to sit on the pole. That kind of come to mind there. Taz Taylor, how about the buzz that's been created? It's been a lot of buzz on the NASCAR side, but not so much, I would say, on the IndyCar side. Is that what you can affirm, or do you have a better argument?
I could see more buzz on the NASCAR side than the IndyCar side. I want to read this off before I get off on that. So Adam Stern reported NBC got a 1.145 million viewers for Sunday's Indy 500 qualifying session, TV only, which is up 35% from 842,000 last year. And this is why I'm kind of going off. It's probably more on the NASCAR side because you have a NASCAR driver doing the double. And I think that when we hear the NASCAR driver that's trying to pull the double, it's not somebody who, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, not like a Robbie Gordon or a Kurt Busch, I mean, I know those are big, solid veteran names, but Robbie Gordon did not have the greatest success of doing the double. Kurt Busch did not have the greatest success of doing the double. I mean, really, and
Robbie Gordon almost won it one year, buddy. Robbie Gordon damn near won it one year. And if you need video evidence, I'll be glad to send that to you in the chat room.
But Tony Stewart is, technically the only NASCAR driver who's done the double and has finished all 500 miles and all 600 miles without losing one lap, without going under one lap, is Tony Stewart in 2001. I did my homework this morning. Don't you worry.
Ooh, I hear you, Big Daddy. Give it to me, Taz Taylor on fire. I like it. But my argument is that Robbie Gordon actually could have won the Indianapolis 500. I don't know what he did. I can't even remember what year it was. But you're right. I mean, so you believe that there's more buzz on the NASCAR side than it is the IndyCar side. Now, can we speculate on why that may be, that IndyCar isn't too hot about NASCAR invading their territory? And we'll get to Craig Moore had a very, very interesting question, and I like good questions, so we'll have to ask that and answer it here as well. Do you think that there's a chance?
You know what? We've seen Kyle Larson do Kyle Larson things, and what I mean, and for those who don't know what I mean by this, if you don't know Kyle Larson by now, let me give you a nice refresher. Kyle Larson has always been an open wheel sprint car driver, and of course he came through the NASCAR ranks because I do remember way back when, I think it was the early 2000s, he was part of the NASCAR Next class with Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott, just to name off a couple of the drivers that were right with him. Now, Kyle Larson now is obviously a Cup champion. He's driven NASCAR for quite some years now, whether it be trucks, Xfinity, and obviously Cup. Now, Kyle Larson, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I believe it was last year, he never raced a dirt late model in his racing career, and it took him 2 races to get a victory.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. Yeah, for sure. When he got in.
It might have been 2 years ago. It might have been 2 years ago then.
Yeah.
Might have been 2 years ago then.
Yeah.
He was. I never raced
and lightning fast. From the door.
Again, never. How many drivers can you sit here and say he's done? Can you literally sit there and say, "But I want you to see." And you really can't. I mean, a lot of people say Kyle Larson is basically the equivalent of Tony Stewart, is today's Tony Stewart, and Tony Stewart has said Kyle Larson reminds me a lot of him. He's got the talent where you can put him in a hot rod with 4 wheels and a motor, tell him to race it. He's gonna put it up in the front. He's gonna compete for wins. If you don't put his name on top of your sheet, then you're stupid. And Tony Stewart believes Kyle Larson probably will have a better success of a racing career than Tony Stewart will ever have.
Good, possibly. If he decides to race that very long. I'm trying to look real quick. I believe the only driver.
I think Kyle Larson jumped in a UMP Modified about the same time around the late model. Maybe it was only last year for the first time ever, and he freaking won in his first shot.
Is he our modern day Mario Andretti?
I would say he's our modern day Mario Andretti and in today's generation of Tony Stewart.
Yeah, but Tony never went to Formula One. My next question is, if he's successful here and does maybe, top 5, maybe leads it, does he try to eye an opportunity to go to Formula One and complete the trifecta?
I want to see him racing Formula One. Maybe he can give Max Verstappen a run for his freaking money. He probably could. I would like to see him at least. I don't know. I feel like he may try to do like an IndyCar season before maybe jumping into Formula One. I could be wrong. I would like to see somebody besides Lewis Hamilton or a Max Verstappen blow up to try to actually beat Max Verstappen. Who that driver will be, I don't know. Maybe it could be Kyle Larson if the opportunity presented itself.
We could talk about Joey Logano leading every lap of the All-Star race, but I think we'll get to that here in just a little bit. But one thing about Kyle, it's such news breaking, if you don't realize I've said the title of the show like 12 times, and if you don't believe that it was set up to be this way, then you don't give me enough credit, Taz Taylor. This was part of this show. and you can see it in the title. This is our not that there's anything wrong with that episode, like from Seinfeld, but you're probably too young to know Seinfeld. Anyway,
I've watched some Seinfeld episodes.
We see Mario Andretti, and he was great at a lot of different places. We watched Cale Yarborough. Cale Yarborough hardly ever put in a full race season in NASCAR. If these drivers had devoted themselves to just one profession, one style racing, they could have been the greatest of all time at that said sport. Instead, I think that, we wonder who is the greatest racer of all time. I don't think that that's discussed enough. But you could definitely start putting out a list of drivers that you would feel like could go within that fold of greatest drivers of all time, right? The greatest of all time. And, Kyle Larson, what I'm getting at here is, does Kyle devote himself finally to NASCAR after all this plan? Is he out just tickling fannies and seeing boobs before he gets married? Or is this the Kyle Larson that we're pretty much going to have? He's never really going to have both feet on the fire for NASCAR because he enjoys too much running around and doing all these other activities. Is that an honest question, or is that one going to be hard to answer, Taz Taylor?
It's going to be hard to answer because, I feel like if we take Kyle Larson out of NASCAR, where is he going to go? More than likely, you're going to see him in the sprint car world, and I don't think there'll be anything different he would do. If anything else, like I said, I think he could, maybe after the Indy 500, he probably, and depending on how well he does, he could probably, if the opportunity presents himself for Kyle Larson to run an IndyCar season, say full time, I think he could probably do it. Question is, can he be successful? Who knows? I mean, shoot, he could pull the Jimmy Johnson deal and probably would do a lot better at it than Jimmy Johnson ever did.
Well, why would you, though, Taz Taylor? Is NASCAR not as big as you can go? I mean, does he not value the greatest sport of all time, being the greatest racing sport of all time is NASCAR? I mean, do you go any bigger? Because Formula One can't hold that pedestal, sir. And Indy only has one race that anybody even knows about. And we match that with the Daytona 500 any year with the Indy 500. Formula One has, they're corrupt, right? That's one team, one driver who can dominate the entire year. The likelihood of Kyle Larson getting that opportunity to do that there is likely to none. Less likely to none. Because what is he going to do? Do a one-off and take the top-tier ride from somebody? Formula One structured the way that they are, they can't have any extra teams just show up and say, hey, we're going to run this. So he's got to have somebody else's car that's already there. And a top-name driver is just not going to step out of his ride to let Kyle Larson take the wheel, right? So it would have to be steps given. Of course, you can't even drive a Formula One car right now without a license, and that license has several status quos that you have to accomplish in order to be considered a Formula One driver. If you look at Colton Herta, and I believe it's the other another driver as well that have eyed going to Formula One, but they haven't quite received their license yet to be able to make that kind of jump. So, at what point in time do we say, Kyle, are you gonna focus and become, a 7-time Cup champion? Or are you going to a 7-time Cup champion?
I think.
Are you going to waste your time doing other things?
For Kyle Larson, I think it would depend on what he would want to do. If he wants to stay more like within the U.S., North American type deal, his biggest shot, in all honesty, is going to be NASCAR. Like, this is as big as he's going to get. If he wants to do world type of racing, like go around the world and race, Formula One's going to be it. I don't know if he'll race Formula One. I mean, I would like to see I would like to see the triple threat of Kyle Larson versus Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. I mean, I know Lewis Hamilton ain't the king that he used to be, but I mean, so it'd be more of a Larson versus Verstappen show at this point, but I just don't know if he can go anything bigger than NASCAR at this point, other than maybe running World of Outlaws, which I doubt that'll happen, being that he has his own sprint car series. So there's that.
You don't make $25 million a year driving a sprint car. I mean, Chaz Thompson tries to sell the dirt racing is just as big, if not bigger, than asphalt racing. If you add up all the purses around America, you're damn right it is. But on a weekly night, the purses aren't going to be so big because the World Racing Group can only afford to put so much into a race. A top-notch, top-flight NASCAR driver at the top of his game and the top of the payroll, the top of the pay chart, makes anywhere between $25 and $35 million a year. That's because a lot of sponsorship money rolls into those caliber drivers. You're just not going to see that being paid in anything structured in the dirt business or, late model asphalt racing, because that's what it atones to. And look, dirt racers will get madder than hell at me. And how dare you? You work at a dirt track. How do you talk down on us? I'm not talking down on you, brother. I take up for you because you put 80 hours a week at work. You throw away your college kids' education fund and the chance to drive Corvette, the Z6 fucking Corvette, just to play this game called dirt track racing. I commend you. I respect you. I love talking the benefits that you bring to my life because you are silly with your finances and go out there and play in the dirt and to bring me entertainment. Now but if you're driving for NASCAR and you're a top flight driver, Taz Taylor, you're making mega bucks to do it. Have I offended all my dirt track people tonight?
I mean, depending on how you do the dirt track world, you can make money off it. You can make a living off of it. Like I said, it just depends on what you're doing, how you're doing, that type of deal. Like, obviously, if you run with World of Outlaws, obviously you know what the hell you're doing. You got it made. If you're running High Limit Series full time, you know what you're doing. You know the money's there. Late model guys, if you're running World of Outlaws or Lucas Oil Late Model Series, you know what's there. Right. Let me go down to a little bit of a lower level for those that may be relatable to the Northeast, the modified guys. There's a good chunk of modified guys that run modifieds on a full-time basis, like, say, Matt Shepard, Matt Williamson, or I know there's quite a few I'm missing, but those are just two names I can bat off in 2 seconds at the moment. Right. That they run big block modifieds full-time, and someone say, oh, how can you race full-time? It depends on the people around you, how well you run, and what kind of races you run. I mean, the two names I listed off, yes, they run at their weekly home track. They have their weekly home tracks on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night, whatever. And, yes, they run 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week. But where do they make most of their money? They go to the money shows that get them, like, a lot of series races that they go to have a lot of bonuses. Like, it's not just the winnings that they get from wherever they finish. It's also the bonuses that come in there.
Taz, how many dirt track drivers do we know that have penthouses in New York City? How many dirt track drivers do we know that own European houses? How many dirt track people do we know that own their own airline? It's big business.
None.
It's big business. and NASCAR is big business. And, you know, Kenny explained the reason why these drivers are going out here and buying these race teams is because of their extravagant lifestyles that's been created from the sport itself. This sport created lavish lifestyles that once the driver retires has no more way to support it. So they have to buy into race teams in order to keep their net worth and value at a high rank so that they can continue to take private flights and own Lear jets and airports and European houses. You know, you tell me what NASCAR superstar that's going into the Hall of Fame, which is something that we'll get to after we talk about the Joey Logano leading every lap at the All-Star race. I literally just forgot again what I was saying. Because we got to eventually talk about Joey Logano leading every lap at Atlanta. I mean, at the All-Star race. Oh, okay. I think I've gotten confused, Taz Taylor.
Hey, so breaking news: Joey Logano led every lap at the All-Star race.
Yeah, you say? Say it ain't so.
Crack the whip. Breaking news, baby.
Lord have mercy. Breaking news. Okay, so, you know, back to the Lear jets and whatnot. You know, obviously NASCAR is at, you know, the highest staple. And look, nobody knew who Kyle Larson was until he was a NASCAR driver. I'm just saying, man, let's focus back on the sport that created you a superstar and quit with all this playing, because I'm not going to lie. I'm terrified that he's going to find turn 4 wall and, you know, we're going to have a Wickens moment or something to that, you know, a rookie driver that never gets to see the potential because he was, you know, at the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, he talks about this is the same guy who's been critical of Daytona and Talladega and saying that he would rather race sprint cars and feel safer in sprint cars than he does racing at these racetracks, going to Indianapolis, hitting the speeds of 241 miles an hour. And I didn't try to turn this into the Kyle Larson show, but, I mean, you know, outside of the Kyle Larson show that we're having here tonight, Joey Logano did lead every lap of the All-Star race, and we'll eventually get to talking about that and a whole lot more here tonight.
Oh, my God.
How about Joey Logano? Did you see that interview?
Joey Logano won.
Oh, no, you didn't even see that interview, did you? Hey, but, okay, I've got a good question about Joey Logano since he led every lap of the All-Star race, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But let's go back to how in the hell does Joey Logano...
I can't keep a straight face for that now.
How in the hell does Joey Logano keep winning these exhibition races? I mean, what... You put this guy on a track for the very first time or call it an exhibition race, and all of a sudden he goes from running 22nd as car number to victory lane. I mean, how does that happen, Taz Taylor?
Joey Logano has this act, I guess, for running on new-ish type of races, I guess. I mean, look at the LA Coliseum. Who won that? Joey Logano.
Right.
Bristol Dirt. Who won that? Joey Logano. I think what
the kid's got a knack, man.
He's got a knack for it. And North Wilkesboro, newly repaved. Who won that? Joey Logano. Oh, by the way, he led every lap of that race. We'll get to that in a freaking minute.
We'll get to that in just a minute. And a whole lot more here tonight.
Mr. TJ, I'm sorry for having you listen back and try to grab clips of this thing.
Lord have mercy. Silly season news, nothing wild and crazy this week. It's still rumored SHR has all 4 charters for sale, and their exit and demise of stock car racing and NASCAR.
I've got some stuff to break down on that. So, from what I have seen, the SHR drivers they said they haven't heard anything different, but they said if the charter talks are true, they have put out feelers for different teams in case if SHR were to leave and sell their charters. So the drivers have a backup plan on hand should they not have a ride for next season because of the whole charter deal. But right now we can't confirm, we can't deny anything of the fact that of SHR selling and whatnot. However, Brad Keselowski did get interviewed before the All-Star race that Joey Logano led every lap for. We'll get to that in just a few moments and much more to come later on. and
it got freaking hot in here.
Brad Keselowski, man, he shut down the rumor talks of RFK trying to buy charters because he goes, listen, a charter these days costs $25 to $30 million each. He goes, and that just doesn't come around like in a blink of an eye nowadays. So Brad said that right now, as much as they want to expand, right now they're not looking into buying a charter. So don't expect RFK to expand in at least the next year or two because they're not ready for it. And they're going to keep running the Stage 60 part-time car on a few races. So,
well, that may be the smart move by a lot of these guys to deflate the price of charters. If by chance there's 5 charters out for sale, Taz Taylor, is $40 million the going rate anymore for a charter? Because isn't it a bidding war? If 5 charters are open in NASCAR right now, does that keep them at valued at over $40 million a piece, or is that the top out? Was that the deal of the century? I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure that much money's up for grabs for 5 Cup teams, 5 Cup charters.
I mean 4?
No. You got to think about Ricky Stenhouse as well. They have sponsor issues. Their sponsor is going away. Right, and then we're not even talking about the colleague cars.
Is this Junior's golden opportunity?
Oh, for sure, to definitely sign up with Ricky Stenhouse, and you have a talented driver who knows how to throw some punches. In the middle of the interview of Joey Logano after he led every lap of the All-Star race. We'll have more news on that and more to come.
Oh, I can see the messages come back in our thread already in the next couple of days. Listen, you folks. Listen, you guys. I can't listen to the whole show because you guys keep talking about Joey Logano leading every lap of the All-Star race. And we'll cover that in a minute.
A whole lot more. But, yeah, I mean, now's your chance. Like Ricky Stenhouse threw his punch. It's time for Dale Jr. to throw his. He even stated this past week that they may be interested in partnering with an organization that already exists instead of just outright growing Junior Motorsports into a Cup team, that they may be open to the idea in investing into a charter. And as I was saying, with the charter being overpriced, with 5 to 7 charters that could open up all of a sudden, there's no way that they're at a rank of $40 million a piece. But what the $40 million piece deal did was basically tell these teams, look, I can run a Cup team for $25 million. I don't have to pay $40 million for a charter. So if I've got a 2-year deal and a $50 million sponsorship, I can run this team without a charter and still be able to cover the bills. So basically, with this influx of charters that are all of a sudden for sale, it's going to drive down the auctioning price of these said charters, and it's going to put it more back into the base of what, somebody like Dale Jr., Junior Motorsports, could invest maybe $15 million into a Cup team that's already there and maybe be half ownership with, a JTG which I believe is going to lose the first two letters of that organization to Joe Gibbs Racing. So, right now is a time for partnership. We've watched Joe Gibbs over the last couple of years bring on new partners. Of course, Fenway, John Henry, the owner of the Boston Red Sox, his equity company kind of helps pay the bills over at Roush Fenway. It seems to be Childress is really one of the only, independent firms left in the Cup Series. Because, Childress is really, outside of the ECR motor, the Earnhardt Childress motor, there's not much that's actually Childress. Now, Hendrick has motors, he has car lots, he has all the above. So Penske, of course, has a $1 billion operation. So really, when it comes down to it, RCR is one of the poorest owners in the Cup Series. Somehow I got on topic of that because, of course, I'm avoiding the topic that Joey Logano led every lap at the All-Star race this past weekend. We've got we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more here later on.
We have a bunch more to break down for you tonight as well.
How do you break down a guy leading every single lap of a race? There was tires, too. There was a tire strategy there that didn't work at all. And I've still somehow managed to give the race a B plus. I'm really questioning my sanity right now.
You gave it a B plus?
Yeah, man, I really enjoyed the race. I feel like that was the best short track race we've seen outside of the Bristol fiasco. There was ability to get up on the top side. There was ability to race the racetrack, which put bumpers and stuff on guys. But, it's like I can't keep blaming the guys and I can't keep blaming the tracks. At some point in time, I have to say it's the tires in the car. It's the type of car we're racing. You can't pass. You can't even get to a guy's bumper. Like, I seen somebody give a mad. Like, I wish I remembered who it was. He tried to knock the back bumper off of the guy in front of him, and the car didn't hardly move because they're so stuck to the ground. Even if you do get to somebody's bumper, it's hard to move them because the car's so stiff and heavy in the ass end that it doesn't hardly go anywhere. If we could have talked about all them other topics and a whole lot more here tonight, I think we might have eventually gotten to Joey Logano leading every lap of the All-Star race.
Oh, my Lord. Hey, guys, in case you haven't gotten the message hey, guys, in case you haven't heard this already, breaking news. Joey Logano and Team Penske are back, baby. Woohoo! They won the All-Star race and led every freaking lap.
It's wild, man. Wild. I don't know. But we're headed to the Coca-Cola 600 this weekend. It's a big-time race. It's a big weekend. It's the trifecta. You get up at 6 in the morning. You watch Monaco. And then you cruise into the Indianapolis 500 around lunchtime. And then that evening you sit back for 600 laps and you enjoy Cup racing. Now, they say that Donald Trump may be in attendance for the Coca-Cola 600. I've heard rumors that this could impede or change the way that Kyle Larson actually gets to the racetrack. Would there be some angry Republicans if Kyle Larson is somehow not able to make it into the Speedway because Donald Trump is there campaigning for his 2024 presidential campaign?
I just want to put this out there now, and I know people are going to make this all political and all, but if there's one place we can make things not so political, can it please be sporting events, racing events? Donald Trump wants to come in, make a grand old guest appearance. Let him freaking come in and do his thing. Stop. Because I know people are going to say, oh, this is all for political deals. He wants to spread it. He wants to spread his campaign around. Great. But if he's just there to make an appearance, and put some eyes on television, cool. Great. But we don't need to make this a political freaking damn race bullshit. And then, I'm going to stop right there because, we still got to talk about Joey Logano leading every lap. We'll get to that in just a minute and much more coming up, even though we have only like 15 minutes left of the damn show.
Well, we could talk about the weather. We can always talk about the weather. This is a racing show, though. So we might as well just...
the weather's hot as freaking hell outside.
Who won the truck race? It wasn't Joey Logano. He led every lap of the All-Star race.
And we'll get to that in just a minute and a bunch more here in the last 15 minutes of this show. Don't you worry. Sit down and get your popcorn ready.
Who won the truck race? I can't even remember. Corey Heim. Okay, so if Corey Heim driving, what team is that? Is that Kyle Busch Motorsports with a different badge on the front of it? Because obviously he's been out of Toyotas forever. Who's owning those TRD trucks in the 11 truck machine? Because let me tell you something, Corey Heim he's turning some damn heads for sure.
So, if I remember right, that is what used to be called, I believe, he races for, obviously still with Toyota, and they're called Tricon Garage, and I think they used to be known as David Gilliland Racing or David Gilliland Motorsports or something along that line.
Okay.
Because Haley Deegan used to race for them when they were Ford. Then Deegan went over to ThorSport because they backed out and went over to Toyota. And now they rebranded and became Tricon Garage because they're fancy.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, they got a fancy driver who knows how to win races, and he's making a name for himself pretty damn quick. It's exciting to see the next set of youngsters getting their chance and all. Really looking forward to that. From the All-Star event, outside of Joey Logano leading every lap, and really turning it into a snooze fest, it really, when you look at the top 15, the 17, it's really no big surprise, right? That's kind of the way these guys have run throughout the year. The only big surprise, I guess, was Joey Logano leading every lap of the All-Star race, considering that Joey Logano hasn't led very many laps at all year long and hasn't been very competitive at most of these racetracks either, which gets to the very last topic before we go to Taz's Hot Picks this weekend. Is Ford back? Has Ford found something? Is Ford back? This is 3 weekends in a row that, Ford could have won. Of course, we got one stolen from us a few weeks ago with the Kyle Larson deal at Kansas. But is Ford back? Have they showed that they're back?
They have definitely shown some speed in the last few weeks. Do I want to say they're fully back? No, but I would say for the most part they are starting to put their nose into the winning column. Obviously, it's Brad Keselowski winning Darlington, Joey Logano winning the All-Star race, and by the way, he led every single lap, and we'll get to that in a minute and much more in the last 10 minutes of this damn show. You ain't gonna want to miss a damn thing. But this is. I think Ford is starting to, peek their noses back into it. I do believe RFK has basically been the head of the table for RFK. I do believe Penske could be arguably number 2, maybe. I don't want to say Stuart Haas, but it seems like Stuart Haas is starting to kind of creep in, and I know the rumors are floating around on them, but they're kind of creeping back in. We're seeing some glimpses out of Josh Berry, who got a podium at Darlington. You also had Chase Briscoe making some nods. Noah Gragson turning some heads, with the 10 car. Which a lot of people are saying that Gragson has done better this year so far than Eric in the same amount of races than Eric Almirola has in the 10 cars. So it's seeming like there's some click with SHR, and they may have found a turning point, and they can only go up from where their abomination was last year.
I can agree with that. Yep. Well, I guess we've mentioned said thing so many times now. I'm just not sure if it's funny anymore. But it was funny and it was hilarious. And of course, if you don't know by now, Joey Logano led every lap of the All-Star race, and we're actually running out of time. So unfortunately, we're probably not going to be able to cover that very well tonight. But we can save that maybe for next week. Give y'all our true perspective of how we felt about Joey Logano leading every lap of the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. It's very so Richard Childress did just say that he is coming out of retirement. He's going to race the 333 car at Charlotte, and he's not going to wreck my boy. Richard Childress says he's taking this in his own hands. So he's put it out a hit on Stenhouse. Yeah, and I don't know if you're talking about Stenhouse Sr. or Stenhouse Jr., but he clearly said Ricky several times. So I'm not sure which one he's calling out, but I would assume it's probably Senior, not Junior, because I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. won that fight. I'm not really sure. I'll have to go back and rewatch it. I was too busy paying attention to Joey Logano in his post-race interview after he led every lap of the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro.
I heard the interview, but I didn't get to see it. I feel a little unfortunate for that.
Yeah, so you'll be able to. I did share it to the page and all. Taz, we're 10 minutes to get into the house. There's been a lot of first-time winners at Charlotte. I think Jamie McMurray, I could name one. Austin Dillon. Several other drivers got their first win. Mikey Waltrip got his first win at Charlotte Motor Speedway, though it was an exhibition race for Wood Brothers Racing. Is there possibly maybe a couple of first-time winners, a potential first-time winner picks here that are already on the list for this weekend, Taz Taylor?
There is one. Yeah, there is one definitely on the contenders list, and I do think there could be one, possibly two, that'll pop through on the underdogs. We'll get to that in a brief minute. But yeah, this is the Coke 600. A lot of people think, oh, this is where our top contenders can be, and really, if you come to think of it, this is kind of like this race right here. While it could be a case of which top driver will win this week, but we've also seen glimpses in the race's history where we've seen underdogs and long shots get a win here. I mean, shoot, last year Ryan Blaney was on a year and a half, 2-year winless streak, and he got his first win last year that ended up propelling him to a championship.
Right. Let me just hit a stat of the day real quick, and I think this one's going to surprise you, Taz Taylor. The Coca-Cola 600 has been the site of many drivers' first wins, including Casey Mears, 2007, David Rudiman, 2009, Whoa. David Pearson, 1961, Jeff Gordon, 1994, Bobby Labonte, 1995, Matt Kenseth in 2000, and the most recent driver to have won the 600 in his first win was Austin Dillon in 2017.
That was when Mr. Rhinestone Cowboy theme became a thing in the modern day.
And we are crazy as hell for not having Ty Gibbs as a contender for this race. And also, we are crazy to not think that either Josh Berry or Noah Gregson, one of those drivers, deserves to be on the, what is it called, the last list?
The underdog.
The underdog. Yes.
So, and then obviously you've named, let's mention what we have so far. So, for starters, for the favorites, I have Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and I have put the big old Brad Keselowski on the favorite list. Finally, I can put Brad on the favorite list and not be ashamed about it. In terms of contenders, I put Tyler Reddick there. We could see him get his first Coke 600 win there, being that he has the best average finish of current Cup drivers to date at Charlotte Motor Speedway on the oval track. And then I have Kyle Busch as a contender and Joey Logano as a contender. For the underdogs, we could see Ricky Stenhouse Jr. get his first win, first Coke 600 win at this track. We've talked about long shots. I think that Stenhouse could be one of those long shot guys that gets his first Coke 600 win this weekend. Bubba Wallace is another underdog to throw in there. And the other one that and Bubba Wallace could also get his first Coke 600 win here as well. And Eric Jones, I want to say he could be one to get his first Coke 600 win here, but I want to see a little bit more out of Eric Jones post-injury that he suffered through a couple weeks ago. So I'm not putting him down a few notches, but I don't want to put all my eggs in the basket.
Oh, that's completely understandable. He did not have the rebound that we were hoping at Darlington in his first race back. Let me pull up.
In terms of Ty Gibbs, I could easily throw in as a contender without a doubt. I honestly believe Noah Gragson believes to be a underdog in this sense. I know people say, well, this kind of suits Noah Gragson's driving style. Yes. But, again, we're trying to see the resurgence of SHR. They're not somebody that I can easily, with the snap of my finger, say, oh, look, an SHR car is going to win, or they're going to compete for a top 5, or they could probably compete for a top 10. But, I mean, I can't necessarily saying Gregson should be a contender. I will give him the underdog without a benefit of doubt.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a hard choice between him. And of course, the reason why I added Josh Berry to that is because of Rodney Childers and the success that Harvick has had here at Charlotte. That could carry over. Charlotte is one of those tracks where the setup is a lot. And with the right setup, Josh Berry could very well be fast in this race too. But I want to name 3 names that I think are names of interest that really need a win right now. And that's Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, and Alex Bowman.
I think Kyle Busch is already on this list as a contender, and yes, he definitely needs a win.
Right.
In terms of Ross Chastain, I think definitely a win needed there to maybe put all these negative Trackhouse comments. And the comments we made, folks, about Trackhouse is nothing to throw shade at them. It's just what we have observed so far, and it's not to what we have seen in years past out of them. We want Trackhouse to succeed. We want them to keep improving. But right now, statistically, they're not really improving. They're kind of, going on a small little downhill climb. And it's We want them to be consistent and, you know, keep improving and stay competitive. So with that in mind, in all honesty, I think Chastain could probably be a contender for this. Bowman, unfortunately, won't make the list after we had the Josh Berry talks, along with Gregson, and now we throw in a couple other names. Bowman, I'm not saying is not deserving to be on this list. I think he is, but it's just our list is full, and that's just how it is. But I think Bowman, with some of the solid runs he's had in this year, I don't think it would be surprising if he knocks on the door this weekend and gets a win. And I think that would be a huge confidence boost for him in the 4018.
Right. Well, you know, it's like a wine cabinet. It only gets opened when it's needed. That's how I feel about adding Kyle Larson and William Byron to the top of this contenders list because, of course, it's in their court, right? It's in their court that this is probably a racetrack where they're going to be really fast at. It's going to be a battle of who is who. But I feel like Larson kind of gets the not-so-nod because of his commitment to IndyCar and whether or not he's even going to be available to race if he wins the IndyCar race. So it's going to be hard for me to sell him as a favorite if we really can't even guarantee that the kid's going to be there to race.
So the focus right now for Kyle Larson, obviously, yes, he's running the Indy and Coke 500 and 600 respectively on the same day on Sunday. However, they have mentioned the fact of Kyle Larson's main focus, and Hendrick has made this clear in an interview with Bob Pockris that was released. Well, part of the interview was released today. Hendrick has said that the main focus for Larson is the Coke 600. Obviously,
He has to tell NASCAR that.
Larson's got to go for the points, help Hendrick with the points, you know, that sort of deal, chase for the championship. Mm-hmm. So obviously the main focus for Larson is the Coke 600. And Hendrick in any way, he's still encouraging Larson to run the Indy 500. It's just Hendrick has to face the realization of that sort. And with what the All-Star race has proven, Kyle Larson didn't even run a single lap on the newly repaved North Wilkesboro, and he went from 12th to 4th when it was all said and done. And the only laps he got was Sunday night in comparison to the rest of the drivers. And that was because he has a genius of a crew chief. I don't really want to say genius because, honestly, a genius crew chief is Ray Evernham. And I don't think Cliff Daniels is to that level yet. He's got the potential, but I don't think he's fully there yet. But Cliff Daniels is a smart, intelligent guy and can set that car up for success regardless who's driving that car.
Yeah, Taz, real quick, if you look over there in the messaging, a listener to the show just sent me a picture of Joey Logano and basically quickly stated that he led every lap of this race at Albany in the year of this picture. So it's not only the All-Star race that he led every lap at North Wilkesboro, but now we have a child picture of Joey Logano in Victory Lane in a Legends car at Albany Speedway in Georgia after leading every lap of that event. So look, let me send you the other picture, the interview picture. This may be the banquet.
But,
yeah.
And in terms of William Byron, yeah, he should be a favorite every weekend. I mean, look at what he's done this year. Look what he did last year. Has he won a Coke 600? No. But don't be surprised if he does. I mean, he wasn't even a Daytona 500 winner up until this year. He wasn't even a legit championship contender up until last year, where he actually won races outside the first 5 races of the year. So, I mean, don't be surprised if William, and we all know Hendrick has this act of winning crown jewel races every year, multiple times a year.
Yeah, he's really good at it. Yep, the crown jewels. Well, I think that only leaves us with one slot left open, right? If my math's correct, and that would be somebody on the contender list.
No, I threw Ross Chastain in the contender side.
Oh, so are we full?
We are full.
Sounds good, man. That's a show. That's a wrap. Unfortunately, we weren't able to discuss very much about Joey Logano leading every lap of the All-Star race in North Wilkesboro. But if you tune in next week, I guarantee you we will never mention this episode again. I promise. We will never mention those words again. It is fun that we were able to make light of that situation, considering most of the time I get angry at situations like that, and so then I bash the sport I love and do everything I can to throw dirt on top of it and make it something that it's not. But I decided tonight, in order to just have light of it, it's an all-star race. It was an exhibition race, so you can't really say it's a bad race because, you know, I mean, $1 million was up for grabs and somebody took it home. That's cool. There were no points involved, and we had a fight, a really good fight. An actual punch was thrown, not no yelling at each other with helmets on and stuff. Yeah, it was a good right hook, too, man, like a Mike Tyson right hook. But it was hard to pay attention to that when we were obviously just enamored by the fact that Joey Logano was doing his interview after leading every lap of the All-Star race in North Wilkesboro. And we'll close on that. Like, I'll take my clothes off, and you can, you do whatever you want to, Taz. But I'm headed to bed, man.
Yeah, we want to thank everyone for listening on to Race Chat Live here on Blog Dog Radio. We'll be back next Tuesday night, the same bat time, same bat place, right here on Blog Talk Radio, Tuesday night, 8:30 Eastern. If you ever missed us live, check out all sorts of podcasts. You name it. If you can think of it and name it, we're more than likely on it, like Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. Just search the 110 Nation. You'll find our shows up on Tuesday nights, Mr. CJ and Mario on Wednesday nights with the 110 Nation Sports Show, and Jared's Thursday night show of Safety to Success. Also, check out our YouTube page as we're slowly getting videos back on to catch our full episodes, clips of some of our shows in case if you want to listen to certain topics. And, of course, if you like our Facebook page, well, what just happened in the background there? Wowzy.
That was just a word that we didn't talk about. Joey Logano winning the All-Star event by leading every lap at North Wilkesboro. We should have talked about that. We
dropped the ball.
We didn't spend enough time. Yeah, I dropped the bomb on that one. My bad, dog. My bad. My bad, dog.
And as for our NASCAR pool people, we are back to our regularly scheduled weekly program. Nothing, just send in your picks tomorrow morning through Thursday night, unless you have to repick. Then you got the Friday extension. And, of course, this has been the Caution Flagger Racing Radio, Chris Creighton. I'm the Tasmanian Double Flaggers, Taz Taylor, saying good night. Support your local racetracks. Have a fun, safe Memorial Day weekend. And we'll see y'all next Tuesday night. Good night, folks.
And never forget that on this day, this past weekend, Joey Logano led every lap of the All-Star event at North Wilkesboro. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you next Tuesday.